This is Max and Mia podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Max and Mia podcast. I'm Mia.
And I'm Max. Today, we've got a really special episode for you.
That's right. If you're at an A2, B1, or B2 level, this episode is perfect for you. We're going to learn English in a fun and natural way.
But today's episode is a little different. Instead of just chatting, we're going to tell you a story.
It's the story of Leo, a young student who just moved to New York to study English.
You'll hear about the problems he faces, his experiences, and the challenges of starting a new life in a new city.
And here's the best part. While we tell you Leo's story, you'll also pick up some grammar naturally without even noticing it.
We built this episode around the 70% rule. That means you don't need to understand every single word.
If you can understand about 70% of the story, that's enough. By the end, you'll know exactly what happened, even if there are a few words you didn't catch.
So don't worry if something sounds new or difficult. Just relax and enjoy the story.
Trust me, once you hear what happens to Leo, you won't just want to keep listening to learn English.
You'll want to know what happens next.
Are you ready?
Let's go. Leo landed at JFK Airport on a cold Tuesday morning. He was tired, really tired. He hadn't slept on the plane, not even for a minute. But he was excited too. This was it. His new life in New York was starting right now. Leo was 23 years old, and he'd just finished a business degree back home. He wanted three things: to improve his English, to find a job in the city, and to prove to himself that he could live somewhere completely new, all on his own. He grabbed his suitcase, took a deep breath, and walked out of the airport. The city looked huge, gray, and a little scary. Cars everywhere, people rushing past him, and that strange smell of hot dogs and coffee in the air. But Leo told himself, "I can do this. I'll figure it out." He took a yellow taxi to his new address. The driver, an older man with a friendly face, asked him, "First time in New York?" "Yeah, actually," Leo answered, a little nervous about his accent. "I've just arrived. I'm here to study English and, hopefully, find a job." "You're doing great so far," the driver said with a smile, and Leo felt a little more confident. He'd found a room online, in an apartment with two roommates he'd never met in person. Their names were Sarah and Tom. They'd only talked over messages, so Leo didn't really know what to expect. Still, the price was good, and the apartment was close to his English school. That was enough for him. Traffic was terrible, and by the time they arrived, it was already getting dark. Leo paid the driver, grabbed his suitcase, and stepped out onto the sidewalk. He stood in front of an old brick building checking his phone. Sarah had sent him a message that morning. "The door code is 4471. Just type it in and come up to apartment 3B. Leo typed the code. Nothing happened. He tried again, slower this time. Still nothing. "Okay," he thought. "Maybe I'm doing it wrong." He tried a third time. The little red light on the door just blinked at him. By now, his hands were freezing, and his phone battery was down to 8%. If his phone died, he wouldn't be able to contact anyone at all, and he had no idea what he'd do then. He needed help, fast. That's when he noticed a woman walking her dog nearby. She looked local, so Leo decided to ask her. "Excuse me," he said, trying to sound calm. "Do you know if this door code usually works? I've tried it 3 times and it's not opening." The woman glanced at him for a second, then shrugged. "Sorry, I don't live here. No idea. She kept walking. Leo felt his stomach drop a little. He was alone, in a new country, standing in front of a door that wouldn't open, with almost no battery left. He decided to call Sarah. If she didn't pick up, he honestly didn't know what his next step would be. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Just when Leo thought she wasn't going to answer, he heard a voice. Hello? Hi, is this Sarah? This is Leo, your new roommate. I'm outside the building, but the door code isn't working. Oh no, really? Let me think. Actually, wait. I think we changed it last week. Sorry, I completely forgot to tell you. It's 7,729 now. No problem, Leo said, even though it kind of was a problem. Let me try that. He typed the new numbers as fast as he could, worried his phone would die any second. This time, the door made a soft click, and it finally opened. Finally, Leo whispered, relieved. He climbed 3 flights of stairs, dragging his heavy suitcase behind him. When he reached apartment 3B, the door was already open a little, and he could hear music playing inside. Hello? He called out, stepping in carefully. Sarah? Tom? Nobody answered right away. The apartment was small but nice, with a few unpacked boxes still sitting in the living room. Leo walked further in, looking around for someone, anyone. Then a door at the end of the hallway opened, but the person who walked out wasn't Sarah, and it definitely wasn't Tom either. It was a tall man Leo had never seen before in his life, standing there with a baseball bat in his hand. Who are you? The man asked slowly. And why are you in my apartment?
Okay, let's take a little break.
Let's talk about how Leo used his English so far.
Right. So let's start from the beginning. The first time Leo really needed English was in the taxi, remember? The driver asked him a question.
Exactly. And notice how Leo answered. I've just arrived. That's the present perfect. We use it for something that happened very recently, and it still connects to now.
So, we're not saying exactly when it happened. We're just saying it's a fresh, recent action.
Right. And later, we hear it again. I hadn't slept in the plane. That's past perfect, and it shows something that happened before another past moment, in this case, before he landed.
Good catch. Now, my favorite part was the door code problem. That's where things got stressful for Leo.
Definitely. And that's where we hear a great example of the first conditional. If my phone dies, I won't be able to contact anyone. We use this structure to talk about a real possibility in the future and its result.
It's super useful because in real life, we use conditionals all the time without even thinking about it. If I miss the bus, I'll be late. If it rains, we'll stay home.
Exactly like that. Then there's the moment Leo talks to the woman with the dog. Did you notice the question he asked?
Yes. Do you know if this door code usually works? That's an embedded question, right?
Correct. Instead of asking directly, does this code work? Leo makes it more polite by putting it inside another question. It's a very natural way to sound respectful in English.
I also loved the phrasal verbs in this story. Figure it out, step out, walked further in. These little combinations are everywhere in real English conversations.
They really are. And they're honestly one of the trickiest parts for intermediate learners, because you can't always guess the meaning just from the individual words.
True. So, quick summary for our listeners. Leo wanted to start his new life smoothly. His problem was a door code that didn't work, and almost no battery on his phone.
And he had to use English to explain the situation, ask a stranger for help, and communicate clearly with Sarah on the phone.
And now, everything's changed, because there's a stranger in his apartment holding a baseball bat.
A brand new problem. And that's where we'll pick things up in part 2. Leo froze. His heart was pounding, and for a second, he couldn't say a single word. The man was standing right in front of him, bat in hand, staring at him like he was some kind of thief. Time seemed to slow down. Leo's mind was racing, trying to think of the right words in English, the words that could get him out of this situation without getting hurt. Every English lesson he'd ever taken suddenly felt very far away. I'm Leo, he finally managed to say, his voice shaking a little. I'm Sarah and Tom's new roommate. I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding. The man didn't lower the bat. A new roommate? Nobody told me anything about that. I swear I'm not lying, Leo said, trying to stay calm even though his hands were trembling. Look, I have a message from Sarah right here. He slowly reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and held it up so the man could see the screen. This is the conversation where she sent me the address and the door code. You can read it yourself. The man hesitated, then took a step closer, lowering the bat just slightly. He leaned in, squinting at the small screen, and read the messages slowly, moving his lips as he went through each line. His face started to relax, just a little. Okay, wait, he said, looking up at Leo again. So, you're telling me Sarah actually invited you to live here? Exactly, Leo said, feeling a small wave of relief. She sent me the address and the door code this morning. My name's Leo, by the way. I just landed today. I'm starting an English course this week, and this apartment was supposed to be my new home starting tonight. The man studied Leo's face for another few seconds, as if he were deciding whether to believe him completely or not. Finally, he lowered the bat all the way and rested it against the wall. Sorry, man, he said, letting out a long breath. I'm Mike, Tom's older brother. I'm just staying here for a few days while my apartment gets fixed. There was some kind of problem with the water pipes. Nobody told me a new roommate was supposed to move in today. When I heard someone walking around in the living room, I honestly thought it might be a burglar. Leo let out a breath he didn't even know he'd been holding. His shoulders dropped, and for the first time since he'd walked through the door, he felt like he could breathe normally again. That makes a lot more sense now. I was pretty confused too, to be honest. I mean, I walk into an apartment thinking I'm finally home, and suddenly there's a total stranger standing there with a baseball bat. Mike laughed, and just like that, the tension in the room disappeared completely. Yeah, that must have been terrifying from your side. Look, let's call Tom, though. I still want to make sure this is all real. No offense to you. None taken, Leo said, managing a small smile. Honestly, I think I'd want to check too if I were in your position. Mike pulled out his own phone and dialed Tom's number, then put it on speaker so they could both hear. The phone rang once, twice, and then Tom picked up. Hey, is Leo there yet? Tom asked immediately, before Mike could even say a word. Sarah told me he was arriving tonight. Wait, did I forget to tell you, Mike? Oh man, I'm so sorry. Mike shook his head, smiling at Leo. Yeah, he's here. It's great to know I almost attacked our brand new roommate with a baseball bat on his very first night, no less. Everyone laughed at that, even Leo, who was still trying to catch his breath after everything that had just happened. Tom explained, a little embarrassed, that he and Sarah had been so busy with work that entire week that they simply hadn't had time to properly update Mike about the new roommate. If Sarah had only sent one more message earlier that day, warning Mike directly, none of this would have happened at all. Well, Leo said once the call finally ended, it's nice to officially meet you, Mike, even if it started with a little bit of a scare. Likewise, Mike said, reaching out to shake his hand properly this time. Seriously, sorry again about all that. Come on, let me show you around the place. Your room's this way down the hall. Mike led Leo down the narrow hallway and opened a door near the end. The room was small but clean, with just a bed, a wooden desk, and an empty closet waiting to be filled. It certainly wasn't fancy, but after the day Leo had just had, it looked like paradise. This is it, Mike said, flipping on the light switch. Sarah left some clean sheets on the bed for you already. Bathroom's right across the hall, and the Wi-Fi password is written on a sticky note on the fridge in case you need it tonight. Thanks, seriously, Leo said, dropping his heavy suitcase onto the floor with relief. I really appreciate all of this, especially after that whole baseball bat introduction. Mike laughed again and headed back toward the living room, leaving Leo alone in his new little room. For the first time since he'd landed at the airport that morning, Leo finally felt like he could relax, at least for a few minutes. He sat down slowly on the edge of the bed and looked around at his new space. It wasn't home yet, not really, but maybe with a little time, it could become home eventually. He picked up his phone, planning to write down the Wi-Fi password, but then something else caught his attention. It was almost 11 o'clock at night already, and his English course was supposed to start at 8 the next morning. In all the chaos of the door code and the misunderstanding with Mike, he hadn't even properly checked the school's exact address or how to get there. He opened the Maps app on his phone and typed in the school's name, then stared at the screen in growing confusion. According to the map, the school was almost an hour away by subway, and Leo, if he was completely honest with himself, had absolutely no idea how the New York subway system actually worked. Great, Leo whispered to himself, lying back on the bed and staring up at the ceiling. One problem's finally solved, and a brand new one is already showing up. He closed his eyes for a moment, completely exhausted, but his mind kept racing anyway. Tomorrow, somehow, he'd have to figure out trains, platforms, transfers, and directions, and he'd have to do all of it in a language he was still learning to master. But for tonight at least, he had a room of his own, a comfortable bed, and roommates who, despite the terrifying start, actually seemed pretty nice after all.
Okay, that ending got so much better than I expected. A baseball bat, and it's just Tom's brother.
Right? And notice something important here. Leo had to stay calm and explain his situation clearly, even though he was scared. That's a really common real-life skill, using English under pressure.
Totally. Let's start with the moment he shows the phone. He says, "I promise I'm not lying." That's a strong way to reassure someone in English when you need to build trust quickly.
Good one. Then we get some reported speech. Remember when Tom said on the phone, "Sarah told me he was coming today"? That's Tom reporting what Sarah told him earlier.
Right? And we use reported speech constantly in daily conversations whenever we repeat what someone else said.
Then there's a great structure right after that. If Sarah had sent one more message earlier, none of this would have happened. That's the third conditional.
Oh, that's a more advanced one. We use it to talk about an imaginary past situation, something that didn't actually happen.
Exactly. It's used a lot for regrets or for imagining how things could have gone differently.
I also noticed some modals of deduction near the beginning. Mike says, "I thought it might be a burglar."
Yes, we use might here to talk about a possibility in the past, something Mike wasn't completely sure about at that moment.
And near the end, when Leo checks the map, we get some really natural, casual language too. "Great," he says sarcastically when he realizes there's a new problem.
True, that's a nice reminder that English isn't just grammar rules, it's tone and attitude too. Sarcasm is a big part of everyday conversation.
So let's recap the pattern one more time for our listeners. Leo wanted to feel safe and settle into his new apartment.
His problem was facing a stranger who thought he was an intruder.
He used English to explain his situation, show proof, and stay calm under pressure.
And something changed. He met Mike, cleared up the misunderstanding, and finally got into his room.
But of course, a new problem showed up immediately. Now he has to find his way to his English school tomorrow, in a city he doesn't know at all.
And that, listeners, is where we'll leave Leo for today.
So that's it for today's episode. We really hope you enjoyed following Leo's first night in New York.
And remember, you don't need to understand every single word. If you got the general idea of the story, you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing.
In our next episode, we'll follow Leo as he tries to find his English school using the subway for the very first time. Trust us, it won't be easy.
So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter of the story.
Thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye for now.